Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eva. I'm PhD Studies Manager at SATEC Maastricht University in Brno, and I would like to welcome you to today's lecture with Andrea Hildebrandt. Let me briefly introduce the Life After PhD, or a Career Cafe Life, if you wish, concept which has been organized since 2018. It's an event series that aims to showcase PhD holders who took various career paths. It's a great opportunity mainly for young researchers to meet inspiring speakers, to listen to their stories, and ask related questions. We invite speakers not only from academia, but as well as from the private sector as well. And newly we organize these lectures in cooperation with the Twinning project partners. So it's my great pleasure to welcome participants outside SATEC as well. I would like to point out that the lecture will be recorded. You've probably seen, and I will send you the link later on. So if you have to leave earlier or you will miss a part of the lecture, you can watch it again later. Of course, you're more than welcome to ask, and you can ask in between the lecture, of course, and you can do it either via chat or just raise your hand and ask Andrea directly. And today's lecture will be moderated by Sabrina Dietz, who did her bachelor's and master's in molecular biology in Frankfurt. Then she continued to her PhD at the Institute of Molecular Biology in Mainz in Germany, where she focused on telomere binding proteins in C. elegans under the supervision of Val. After graduation and finishing up her respective manuscript, she's been working as a coordinator of the International PhD program. So I believe Sabrina is definitely the right person to introduce Andrea Hildebrandt and moderate today's lecture. So thank you, Sabrina, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eva. Yeah, hi, everybody. Thank you for the nice introduction. So you know already about me. So now I will tell you a little bit about Andrea. I mean, part of you already know her because we've all worked at IMB together, more or less overlapping times. So Andrea did her bachelor's in Darmstadt in biotechnology, and then a master's degree in molecular biology and immunology at the University of Vienna. And afterwards, for the PhD, to be able to study high throughput techniques, like, for example, mass spectrometry, she started her PhD at the IMB, jointly in the groups of Julian König and Petra Beli. And the research focus was the RNA binding ubiquitin ligase Macorin-1, determining molecular functions of this protein. So together with Julian's and Petra's expertise, this was done in the protein areas as well as the mass spectromic areas. In April, after finishing, guys, could you switch off your microphones? Thank you. After she finished her PhD, she left IMB and started her current position that she will tell you about now as a trainee, as an assistant plant manager at Zanufi Aventis in Frankfurt. So thank you, Andrea, for being here today. And I'm sure everyone is really curious about the stages of you ending up at Zanufi. And I hope everyone will have a lot of questions. So the floor is yours, Andrea. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the nice introduction, Sabrina. Actually, I'm very happy to see you all here, even though the weather is so nice outside. And yeah, I just want to share a bit my story, which is, I think, a personal story, so it's different for everyone. But maybe you can take a bit of some tips or something. And yeah, please ask in between or send a message, because yeah, I hope I'm not the only one talking now. So I'm sharing my screen. Can you see it now? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So as Sabrina already said, I did my bachelor's in biotechnology, and I'm always having my motivation why I did what I did a bit in green here. So this is then after the initial studies that I wanted to go abroad, and I was interested more in biologics and not so much in the engineering part of my studies in biotechnology. So I ended up doing my bachelor thesis in Sweden. And in the beginning, I was a bit skeptic if I'm able to write a whole thesis in English and do all the studies, but it worked out really well. Like I had a lot of great friends there. I had a lot of fun in the lab. It was very young and international. And I also got interested in basic research because that was like the first time that I was reading like a scientific paper. Before in the studies, we were more like lectures and had internships in the lab. So yeah, that was my first abroad experience. And then I wanted to kind of do that again. And because of the bachelor thesis, I got very interested in the biology part, in drug development, in the diseases and viruses. And so I was looking for like really a program on immunology. And that's what they had in Vienna. And you could also choose whichever lectures you wanted. You could say, oh, I want to do this and that. And I also thought that Vienna was quite a nice city. So I was like, yeah, let's go there. And then my master thesis I did at SEM, which is also a research center there, which is focused on molecular medicine. And my boss was into host and virus interactions. And also there it was very international, lots of young people. We had Halloween parties, as you can see here. We went as the plague. So you can see the red, the death, and the plague doctor. And that also brought me more into research and wanting to do new techniques and wanting to find out new things, basically, and going into research. And that is then why I went to the IMB in Mainz. So big part was that I also wanted to see my friends from home more, because I thought, okay, if I'm home more, I see them more often, which is actually not the case. So because when I came home from abroad, they were all there and took their time. And when you live close, everyone kind of goes on the business. But then I found a lot of new friends actually that are also partially here now. And yeah, we also were a nice group of PhD students. It was super international and fun. Mainz is a carnival place, as you can see. And scientifically, I wanted to do next generation sequencing and mass spec. And yeah, as Sabrina already said, I got the chance to do that in the 2 labs of Julian König and Petra Beli. So I was then working with mRNA biology, which is also why I'm here today, and also on mass spectrometry. Yeah, and then I finished this, and then there was a bit the question what to do now. That was like the first time. Before it was always like, oh, I do this, I do that, I know what I want, I'm going in this direction. And then after the PhD, it was a bit more like, oh, what to do. So I actually took a bit of time to decide whether I really want to go into industry or into research. And then I just applied for different positions in different companies. I actually wanted to do project management. And then I got invited for this trainee program by Zanufi. And what they offer is basically that you have 3 positions. The first one you do for a year, then you go for a half year somewhere else. And then in the last half year, you either go back or you go somewhere else. And the trainee program, so you also have fellow trainees that are then in the courses with you, or you're in contact. So we go for a beer, or we chat, or we meet for lunch. You also have soft skill courses and specialist courses. And you also get to know different areas in the company. And what I did was that I was assigned to be an assistant plant manager. And so this is not our company, but it looks very similar. So you have these huge vessels. Every day you go around with the helmet and the goggles and the mask because of Corona. And I was a bit surprised why me as a molecular biologist, why they put me in this plant, like they were huge vessels. We talk about pumps and about, I don't know what, the whole day. I was like, okay, that's maybe not my world, but what I really like is that it's very diverse. And I'm going to tell you in the next few slides what I'm doing every day. And my second position was launch manager and technology transfer leader, which might be a bit cryptic. But what we do is that if you go to the pharmacy and you want, for example, some cough syrup, and you don't have to go to the doctor before, so it's over-the-counter medicines, and how they come to the market. So this is project management. You talk to the to the plant where they produce the medicine. Then you organize the packaging, you organize studies with the quality or stability studies, clinical studies, and then you see that the product can be sold in different countries. Genau. And yeah, because my main job life, I would say, is the insulin production, then I decided to focus on this a bit today. So what we do is that we produce the insulin, and the company produces the insulin really from the E. coli fermentation until it's in like this pen that you can just use. And it's like a step of, it's basically protein purification that you know from the lab, just in big vessels. And then comes the filling into the bottles, and also the filling into these syringes. And that is also done in the company. And this is divided in different steps, and we are in step 8 to 10, so to say. So we're in the middle of protein purification. And we have in our plant, we have like a team. So we are the production team. Then we talk a lot to the engineering people, because they have all the knowledge about the pumps and tubings and whatever they have. And then we talk a lot to quality assurance, because every time something doesn't go as planned, you talk to them, and they also make sure that the quality is kept at a good level, basically. And we also talk to the people from health, safety, and environment, because we don't want anyone to be injured, right? So we don't want to have, I don't know, propanol going into the environment or into the water sinks, basically. But we also don't want people to get injured, and also the emission should be reduced. So this is also very important. And they're actually part of the production plant. The plant operators, they do shift work, and they basically press the button. So I'm not really producing the insulin myself. I'm just sitting at the computer or running around in the building and tell people, I don't know, when to start what, or trying to find the problem that we have. So a big part of my daily work is actually working together with the quality assurance. We do validations, and then, for example, if we have a deviation, for example, the temperature was too high because the measurement was wrong, then there's a deviation, and then you have to see how to fix this by a kappa, which is corrective action, preventive action. And you can also, in case you want to change something permanently, you do change control. Have a lot of GMP documentation, which is like making me crazy sometimes, because like you cannot just go to the fridge and take a new batch or take a new vial which has a different batch, but it's like documents and documents just to change the lot number or just to change something. And if you have all the documentation, it also needs to be reviewed. So you sit again and go through the folders and check that everything is fine and is GMP. So everything has to be correct and documented. And so you sit at the computer quite a lot. We also do production planning. As I said, we have like different steps in the production. So then we talk to the people before us in the chain and after us, and then we see how everything fits in our vessels and how fast we can be or how slow, and when to produce what, because we are producing 3 insulins, but we only have 2 streets to produce insulin. So one is always changed, and the other one just runs with the same insulin. So we have to see how fast we can be and when to change what, and how to organize this. And then we also need to check our data. So we, for example, we always check that the temperature is in the specific range. So you have to see if something went wrong, if it's like super crazily out, or if it's still in the range, and if all your samples that you take are also in range. Then we do process planning, which means that, for example, if the engineering wants to change a pump, then we have to see, how are we running now? Do we have a slot here? You can go and clean the vessel there. It's a lot of communication and planning. Then we organize sample taking. So sometimes we just take our regular samples, But we also take special samples. For example, one of the labs, they wanted to check something. So they call me and say, oh, Andrea, can you please organize the sample? And it's not that you go just to the vessel and open it and you send it, but then you need, you need the glass bottle, you need all the stickers, you need a plan, you need to tell them when to do it, how to do it, what to do it. Then you need to organize that it's driven to the lab. So it's actually 2-3 hours that you just spend for organizing, taking a sample. Then there's problem solving. So we have one guy, he's always coming to the office like, hello, we have a problem. It's like, okay. And in the beginning, I was super nervous, like, oh, what's the problem? What's the problem? But now I know he's a bit exaggerating and usually it's fine. But sometimes, for example, the HPLC is not running. So you have to call the people taking care of the HPLC and call them to come in order to solve the problem, whatever the HPLC has, because I'm not doing it. That's also something, I'm calling the people, I'm saying we have a problem, can you please fix it? But I'm not operating the HPLC myself, how it has been before in the lab, actually. Well, we also called Anja, but yeah. And then sometimes you have these problems and you don't know why. Like we had, for example, a pH that was always going up and up and up, and we never knew why. So you spend really hours discussing with everyone and testing to find out why you have this really crazy problem. Sometimes you think it cannot be, but yeah, something, I don't know. For example, we had a vessel with propanol this week, and it was just filling. It was just going up and up and up, like the volume was going up. And we're like, why? Because it cannot be going up because the valve is closed. But actually now we think that the valve was leaking, but our measurement for the flow didn't measure it. So this one is, do you know what I mean? So, you check you look at your data, you think, cannot be, there's no flow, but actually there is flow because the device is just broken and you don't measure it. That's why then your volume raises and then everything is messed up and you have to repair it. That is also what we do is process optimization. So we want to make our process more efficient or easier also for the plant operators. For example, now they always have to take a sample, measure it in the HPLC, then they have to go online, do some verifications of the data, and then they can only continue with the process. Now we are trying to find like a range that is always fine, so we don't have to measure the sample anymore, but we have just a standard procedure that we always do without measuring it in between. And then, of course, if you change something, you always have to teach the people, the plant operators, the production team, the engineering. Like they can never do something without being taught before. That's also something. In the lab, you just go and you pipe it. Here, you always have to have an instruction before. So that is what I do in the plant or in the house every day. And then outside of our building, basically, we also have like a lot of projects going on that we collaborate with. We have to talk to the regulatory people for the dossiers. For example, if we want to sell one of the insulins in a new country, for example, Japan, we had last year. Because of the data analysis and all the programs, we often talk to the software administrators. And we also talk a lot with the quality control. They are the ones analyzing our samples or wanting samples, depends. So what do you think? That's actually a question. So yeah, if you can just answer by unmuting yourself, what do you think, what do I need in my daily life that I learned in my PhD?
Zero.
Zero? Are there any other suggestions?
Hi, Andrea. I think maybe just general problem solving capabilities. I mean, what you also sort of mentioned, but I guess that's something we did or do in our PhD.
Mm-hmm.
I also think maybe communication.
True.
Sometimes to get what the problem is about, it's quite challenging, I believe.
Yeah. True.
Hello. I also think that the way we face problems in PhD, it also makes us more mature for the for the marketing or what is happening out there, and also just the way of dealing with the protocols during the PhD that also make you more expert to even deal with any other protocols, even if you don't ever used it before. So I think all this together makes it more makes you more expert. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, true. Yeah, so basically everything that you mentioned is exactly what I need every day. But it's, as you have noticed, it's not that I need to know how to isolate RNA from the cells, for example. It's really more the transferable skills that I'm using. So problem solving, for sure. I didn't even put it here, but yes. And also communication. That's what I do the whole day with all kinds of people. Teamwork, like it's never just me who can do something. As I just said, I need to call someone to fix the HPLC. I need to ask my colleagues how they usually do it because I'm still new. I need to have to talk to, I don't know, the engineering because something doesn't work and I don't know why. I need to talk to my boss, of course, and to the operators. Being quick is often very important. And I think sometimes when you really want to do your experiment and leave, that's also what you learn during the PhD, because sometimes you really have deadlines or you just have so much on your plate that you really want to just get rid of the stuff, of the tasks and continue. I actually need some of my knowledge that I gained, as I said, the protein purification. That's something that's here that I did in the last 3 months of my PhD, or someone helped me to do it basically. And I found, it's just here, I found my biotechnology engineering book again. So maybe that also still helps a bit. You always have to present either data or you have to say why you decided to do it this way. So you have to also present decisions and also new workflows. You have to adapt to new topics because maybe I'm now in the plant, but then when I did the launch management, that was completely different. Like there was a lot of project management, economics, all the other stuff. They always want you to ask questions. So that is also what we learn in the talks. Being persistent and finishing things. So they usually have like a task and they want you to do it until then, and you need to do it. And sometimes it's your duty to follow up. So you also need to bug the other people, like, how is it going? How far are you? When are you finishing? And what I think is quite important is taking decisions, because there's some people who don't like to do it, and then that just slows down the process. So sometimes you just have to say, okay, we do it this way, even if you don't know if that's the right decision. But sometimes it's better to decide and to go and then fix the stuff later on a bit than just to prolong the decision phase, let's say. Yeah, and then working together with different areas. Before I was working with protein people, mRNA people, and bioinformaticians, for example. Now, as I said before, I'm working with quality regulatory engineering, and often just helps to, call them, ask them, talk about it, and yeah, then it actually is quite fine. And also starting things, because what you always have is, okay, we need to do this. Oh, we can do it this way. But then someone needs to take over and to say, okay, let's do this. What do we need? Who does what? Or I will take it on, as I said, and then let's go. Because what we always have, we discuss it, and we say, oh, it would be nice to have. Okay, and then we leave the meeting, and then like 2 weeks later, we were like, what did we decide? So what's the status? Oh, we didn't even start it. We should. And then you start, but then we lost already 2 weeks basically with not starting it. Then I have a slide that's a bit busy also, but when I started in the company, there were also things that surprised me after the PhD. So as I said, now I'm like talking to a lot of people. So it's not me alone doing my experiments. Sometimes you also have it in the lab, but basically it was my project and I was taking care. But now I cannot change the whole process just by working by myself. So you always have someone helping you. And also, if it's a bigger company, you often have people that have the job to do this. And then there's a person to do this. So it's not your job anymore. So you have to always talk to many people. Yeah, and what I really like is that everyone goes in the same direction. Because yeah, also with the PhD, maybe you have a bit of an isolated project, or it's your project, or it's a small group. But there, everyone wants to produce the insulin, right? So even if they are busy, but you have a bigger problem, and if you don't fix it, then you cannot produce the insulin anymore, or like you get a delay, they will stop or interrupt what they are doing and help you, most of them at least, because they all know we want to produce the insulin and not just like write your document or something. Yeah, then I had a lot of responsibility at the beginning because so we had 2 people for the same job, for the assistant plan manager. But when I started, Corona also started. So they always, we always were there 1 week, one of us, and 1 week the other one. So it was me alone, basically, with my boss sometimes. And also this guy then left for a project. So it was me alone, and I was pretty new, but they kind of expected me to just jump right in. So that sometimes can also be quite, yeah, be a bit difficult, but I guess you get used to it. And then because the other guy went for the project, they also kind of gave me the unofficial team lead. So I had like 3-4 people to be the team lead of. And that was also a bit like, okay, I'm the one that only is a trainee. There's people who have been in the company for 20 years, and now I'm supposed to tell them what to do or to allow them to go on holidays, you know, and it's like, who am I to do this? But yeah, it's more, I found out it's not more like telling them what to do, but maybe, you know, just checking that they think of the tasks that they have and that we are in the plan of what we have to do, and that maybe also help them if they have questions. Yeah, and then something is funny. So I had like a document that I was writing, and I asked my boss in the beginning, it's like, oh, I'm finished. Do you want to check it again? And he said, no, if you did it, it will be fine. And that is very different from being in the lab where you have a problem. And the first question is, did you mix up your samples? So they basically trust you more. They just let you do. But that also depends on the boss. Then there's always the 80-20. So you need 80% of time to finish the last 20%. And maybe it's just fine to do just 80% and you're done, and not just take for a very long time just to be perfect. So also perfection takes too much time. My boss said, my older boss said, at least you do something. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we have something, and then we can still make it better. But it's better to have something than not to have anything. And it's also different kind of pressure. So now the pressure is more from the other departments, like, oh, we need this, when are you finished, we need this. It's like, oh, and if you don't finish, we cannot start. And it's not so much myself pressuring, because in the PhD, I felt more it was my pressure. I wanted to finish the experiment on this day. I wanted to have good results. I wanted to get the degree, basically. And so for me, the inner pressure was a bit more exhausting than the outer pressure, I would say, but I guess that's different for everyone. And last, so you work with a lot of different kinds of people, because in the PhD, you have the professors, you have your fellow PhDs, you have core facilities, for example. But there we also have people that do the apprenticeship and maybe don't speak English super well. So, or they, I don't know, they don't understand the programming code that you just wrote. So you have to also explain to people, or you have to be able to explain things in a very easy fashion, but you also have to talk to the boss or maybe to your boss and explain it in a more complicated or elaborate fashion. Yeah, that I have mentioned before. There's lots of areas you work with, and it's a lot of documentation, which really is, you cannot imagine how often I'm signing something. Yeah, and last, there are some suggestions that you can take, but you don't have to, of course. So if there's soft skill courses in your program, take them all. That helped me a lot with my applications because people really like it, like communication courses or presentation courses. If you want to go to industry, you could think about taking mentoring programs. So I know some people who really got the job because of the mentoring programs, or at least they got tips for the applications or some suggestions or internships. Yeah, so you could consider this. In any case, networking on conferences, on LinkedIn, on any kind of seminars maybe. What's really important, take care of yourself. So your friends, your families, and your free time, that is very important. And before I had here, like, I don't know, your free time is more important than a PCR. Yeah, I think it's just for yourself and also for maybe later to, it's more important to be healthy and happy than yeah, taking a day less to finish the PhD. And also take your vacation days. Yeah, you will never get them back and you have the best time going on vacation. And yeah, if you want to stay in academia, go to conferences. There you will network a lot, of course. And then doesn't matter what you want to do, but think about it. So if you want to stay in academia, networking, you can already look for labs, can see if you can already apply for funding for later, because that takes a lot of time. Think about projects you're interested in the future. So for example, if I decided to do a postdoc, I would have joined the molecular biology I learned together with the immunology that I had in my master's, for example. You could check which hot topics are there for the next years and maybe see if that is a direction you would want to go in, and which methods you might need and could still learn for the next steps. And if you want to go to industry, maybe don't take the 6-year PhD, and you don't need 3 papers to go there. So I was asked, like, the only time we talked about my papers that I have in the office was my colleague saying, yeah, you always have these publications. Do you also have that? I was like, yeah, I have some. Okay, that was it. So no one asked ever about my papers. As I said before, soft skill courses and other courses are actually quite nice, and they also help you. And maybe you can also start trying out which positions you would be interested in. So maybe that's a question for you. Do you know the difference between quality assurance and quality control? Does someone know?
I know, because
You know?
Hello, I'm Daniela from SciTech. I'm the technology transfer manager, and I was, before that, before I came to university, I was 17 years working for a business company, and we were cooperating with pharma companies. So I know it because, yeah, we were working for them. So quality, QC is in the output when the product is coming out from the pharma company, and QA is the process inside in the production. Am I right?
Yeah. So quality is, as you said, controlling what comes out to check if the quality is good. It's basically, for us, often sample analysis. And quality assurance is, as you said, in the process. So you're there all the time to keep the quality up and to make sure that everything is fine. But when I applied, I didn't know. So I would have applied for both, and I wouldn't have known where I would end up. Yeah, and with this, I'm actually already at the end of my presentation, and I hope you have a lot of questions.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. So we already have a first question. Eva was very quick in typing it up. So it would be, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently during your PhD to prepare for your position in industry that you have now?
I think I would not have waited for the paper. the last one. So I really finished it up, and I thought, oh, it's important that I have my paper. But I have a lot of trainee colleagues actually that just defend after they have already taken on the position, and they are also writing in parallel, which is also exhausting. But yeah, I guess I would not have waited for the last paper.
Okay, then we have a question from the audience. Ding-Kwan Yu, you have raised your hand.
Hello, thank
Hi.
you for your lecture. I just wonder, in terms of the companies in Germany, is it okay to speak English in the work days? But I mean, I love the German language and try my best to learn it. But I estimate even after 4 years of PhD living here, I could reach just above a B1 level, which isn't sufficient to be a professional in German. So I don't know whether the language barrier exists in companies in Germany.
I would say that depends on your position. So the position I have now, what I presented, the assistant plant manager, there, as I said, there's a lot of people who don't really speak English so well. So then it's maybe a bit hard to communicate. But I think even if you're B1, you might be able to, but you also have to write some documents maybe in German. But the other position with the project management that I have, that is actually very international, because you talk to producers that are in France and in Spain. So there we basically speak English the whole day. So it really depends on your position. And I think there's a lot of positions that are also in English.
And my second question is, so do you think getting a PhD is actually a disadvantage when it comes to job application? Because I'm feeling most of the jobs in the industry can be done by a bachelor or master students, and obviously they require lower wages compared to a PhD candidate. So from the point of view of employer, they would prefer they wouldn't prefer PhDs in this case. Do you think? That's just my guess, but I don't know whether that's true in companies.
So yes, you can, like my job, my trainee colleague, he has a master, not just, but he has a master, and he basically does the same job as I do. And they took us both, but they so we, in our trainee program, we are engineers and we are scientists. And from the scientists, there's only, I think, 2 guys who don't have the PhD, and all of us have the PhD, all of us other 5 or 6. So I don't think it's a disadvantage to have the PhD. Also, what I said before, like your problem solving skills and your like taking on things and finishing the project and taking decisions. I think that's what you learn during the PhD that maybe a master doesn't have yet, but will also learn. And pay-wise depends on the job, I guess. So, for example, for the PhD, for the trainee program, it was almost equal, and then the company doesn't really care if you have the master or the PhD. Pay-wise. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, then we have another question from the chat from Olga, who wanted to know if you needed to apply a lot.
So I had, I think, 20 applications that I sent out. I had then with the trainee program 2 interviews. One was as a clinical, what was it? Clinical CRA. I don't remember the full name now.
Research associate?
Yeah, something like that. In retrospective, I think that my applications might not have been very targeted. As I said, I didn't know what the difference was between QC and QA. So maybe if I would have, checked a bit more in detail what the announcement said or the ad said, then maybe it would have been a bit more targeted.
Okay, then Wafa, you have a question.
For your presentation, Andrea, I really enjoyed it.
Thanks.
My question would be, I've heard that most trainees are PhD or prior PhD students that are considered for the trainee program. Is that true?
As I said, so we have quite some that are PhD students. They are either already finished or they are finishing during the trainee program, so they defend a bit later. But as I said, we also have 1 or 2 that have the master.
Okay, and my other question is, was there ever a situation where you thought, oh, I should have gained experience, industrial experience during my PhD time? And is that so easy in Germany? Because most of the times they say, oh, you're a PhD student, what do you want here? So, but then I've heard that there were some PhD students doing like, I don't know, little volunteer stuff. So they built a network that was really helpful for them later on when they applied for a position. So is there something you would recommend here?
So I know people that did an apprenticeship, and maybe some people were looking a bit longer for finding a job, so they also maybe considered doing an apprenticeship, not apprenticeship, sorry, internship.
Mm-hmm.
It can help, of course, but then on the other hand, I also thought if I should do one, but then I was like, okay, I'm having a PhD. I don't want to work for nothing, you know?
Yeah.
It's also my time and my expertise that I already gained. And then the company lets me work for 2 months for 400 euro. I mean, that's a bit, I don't know. I didn't like it so much, but people do it and people like it. And of course you learn a lot. But also, for example, if you were already in the company and you would change your job or go to another company, you would also be new and you would also have to learn. So they always say that you need at least 6 months. Doesn't matter where you're from to get ready to do the job really. And I think that doesn't really matter if you have had company experience before. Of course it helps, but it's also not that you cannot do your job if you didn't have it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have a follow-up question, Daniela, in the chat. If you're in your position of technology transfer leader, did you cooperate with universities on joint research projects? And if yes, if you had any problems or issues during these cooperations?
In my position as a technology leader, you mean? So for the other position that I had. So there we had, it wasn't with the with universities, but there it was more that we have, so it's medications that Zanufi doesn't produce by themselves, but they have other companies producing for us because it's cheaper. So then you talk a lot basically with them, and also their, I don't know, their quality or their not the regulatory people, but their transfer leaders basically. But also there you are the project manager and you have your team in Zanufi. So you have people from quality, from regulatory, and they then also talk to their pondos basically. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then we have another question by John.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much for the talk, Andrea. I just wonder, when you were going through the interview, it just sometimes, I imagine myself as a person who is trying to hire a student. And then I wonder what kind of question do they ask you to tell whether you have a PhD or you have a master? What kind of highlights you and what do they expect from you?
In the interview, you mean?
Yeah, like when going through, just if you were to hire someone now, how would you?
I think there they didn't really, I mean, they have your CV in the beginning, right? There's a selection process and they know that you have the PhD or the master. What was more important for them was more to see how you are as a person, I think, at least for my selection process. So they were, we also had discussion rounds with other people, with other applicants. And so they wanted to see if you're very shy or if you're very outgoing. And if you have an opinion, basically, that you can express, for example. So it wasn't so much talking to the people and they were saying like, which polymerases do you know? Not at all. So we had one girl, I think, and we had like this group discussion and she didn't say anything. She just said her name in the beginning. And then I don't know if that was the reason why she wasn't selected in the end, but like if you, they want to see you, how you are.
Nice.
And then if you're very shy, of course you can be shy. I think that wasn't a problem. But if you don't say anything, but you have like a role to play, like we had, for example, I was the production guy and we have a marketing guy, and then you have to discuss. And if I just let the marketing guy speak, then they also wonder if in the real job, then if I would speak up,
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we had one interview that you had to present yourself, but that was also a bit more like, what have I done and why did I want to go into this program? But it wasn't about master or PhD.
Yeah. It just sometimes I feel that I'm just a master student with a few more years of more extra experience. I feel that if a master student come in to do what I do for another 2 years, he or she would be just as good. And then I just wonder, for other people, what kind of difference do they see in a master or a PhD student? At the end of the day, it's just a matter of time, right, and experience.
Also true, yes. But for example, we have, I don't know if it's personal, but we have, for example, a girl, and that's what I said before with the decision taking. She's really insecure in taking decisions. Not insecure, but she takes a bit longer, let's say like this. And maybe that's something you learn. You have a few more years of experience, maybe also with the pressure that you get. Maybe also because in your PhD you've done it. You have had like the lows you can have. You had all the pressure you can have. Also with the presentations, I think I was very nervous with my defense. And now if I have to give a talk for 5 people, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I've done this 100 times. And maybe that's what you haven't done in your masters yet. Of course, after a few years, if you're a master doing the same job, you will also be fine with giving a talk.
Yeah. That's really encouraging. Thank you. I feel better about myself.
I'm glad.
Thank you.
Okay, then maybe another question from the chat in between. There are many pharma companies. Why did you select Zanufi?
So that's a question you have to answer in the interview. Why do you want to go to Zanufi? And I actually said it doesn't have to be Zanufi. It's just where I applied and what I got basically. But I mean, there's many great pharma companies, and I cannot say that one is better than the other. No.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that was also not the worst answer you could have given them. Instead of, kissing ass, as you like to say, it's just like straightforward. Okay, this is a job I would like to do, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, also if they don't want you, right? I mean, what can you do?
Yeah. Okay, then maybe Vivien in between before I continue with the chat.
Yes. Hi. So I was wondering, maybe a little bit based on your answer also that you gave to John and now about the interviews and stuff, but I was wondering about maybe more your traineeship, because you said also in the beginning that you were quite surprised about sort of the position that you were put in. Is that then also based on sort of the interview rounds, you think? And I was wondering if there within the traineeship, if there was other positions that you would have maybe liked better, and how you feel now about your position, or if you would still maybe prefer something else within this traineeship or something.
Yeah. So as you heard correctly, I was quite surprised why I was put in this position. And actually, so you do the application and then Provades, which is like the partner of Zanufi, who does all the trainee courses also, they do the pre-selection. And I was talking to one of the organizers or the application process people, and then she said, oh, I have a position for you in QA, would you be interested? I was like, yeah, sure. And then I came to the interview days, or then she called me again. It's like, yeah, I have this position for you as assistant plant manager. Would you also be interested? And I mean, I didn't know what an assistant plant manager does, so I Googled it, but it wasn't really helpful. And then I was like, yeah, okay, I just try. And then on the selection day, so we were, I think, 12 people for 4 positions. So it's actually quite a good rate. And then there were 3 or 4 positions that are presented by the manager on this day. And then they have like 4 people who they are interested in. And yeah, my boss was there and he presented it and was like, yeah, okay, but still why I am selected or for this position. And then there was one for quality control, which was really lab work. I was like, yeah, lab work, really awesome. But I wasn't selected for this. And, you know, but then we have another assistant plant manager and we have quality assurance girl and a quality control girl. And we all have the same background. We all did molecular biology or immunology, like 4 of us. I don't know why they selected us for this or this position. In the end, I'm quite happy I didn't do the quality control or quality assurance position because I like my position quite a lot. It's very diverse. It's not doing the same thing every day. I talked to a lot of people. What I really wanted to do was the project management, which I did get as the second position. But if you are there for only 6 months, then they don't give you a whole project. So it's not really that you do a lot. So I'm still a bit, yeah, with the project management, I would have liked to learn more. And yeah, I mean, once you have a position in the company, you can always change, right? So you can always see. And also what we had is that people didn't go back to the initial position after the exchange, but they maybe liked something else better, and then they initiated a change to somewhere else.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good, then we have another question from Daniela in the chat. While PhD studies are driven by publications and the budget that is available, the company is driven by profit and quality. Since this is quite a difference to the PhD position, is this a problem for an incoming PhD student to switch to this mindset of like profit and quality?
A bit, I would say, yeah. So the quality, I don't know. For example, if the PCR didn't work, or like, for example, when you pipetted a PCR and you're not sure if you added, I don't know, the polymerase, then you just maybe added a bit more polymerase, right? And you're like, yeah, it's fine, it will work, great. And now this, I mean, this cannot happen. So you have to throw it away and start from the beginning. And I mean, the time and the profit, for me, it's quite okay. I mean, still, if we have a batch that, I don't know, really is really messed up, we have to throw it. And of course, there's discussions because that's a lot of money that you throw. But that's also, you also said in the lab if you have to throw your Western, right? So that is a different kind of profit, I would say, but that was fine. The quality was a bit more, or the GMP quality was a bit more thing to get used to, but I guess get used to it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, there was a question from Johanna that asked, would you say your job is fun? I mean, you elaborated on it a little bit while answering Vivien's question. So if Johanna is fine with the answer, then I would continue with further questions.
But the answer is yes, I'm having fun.
Okay, then maybe the next one again, Ding-Kwan Yu.
Hi, I just wonder, during the application process, do they care about your grades and examination marks during your undergraduate studying?
I'm not really sure. So they, it's quite a process. So you send your application and then they scan it, and then they talk to you on the phone, and you also have to answer some questions. Like you have a questionnaire that you get online, and then you have to answer these. So I'm not really sure how much the grades are taken into consideration for inviting you. That I cannot answer, but I don't know. I guess from the undergraduate, not so much, but I wouldn't know.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, then I will continue with the chat question, and then after that, Damira can ask a question. So do you miss the academia? Is it true that in a company you lose kind of your independent thinking because you have to have like the hive mindset, like the company thinking?
So I missed the academia in a way. So I was just telling you before that I was in the lab yesterday, right? And I was sitting next to my colleague and I was like, I can pipette now. And he was like, oh, you really missed the pipetting in the lab. I was like, yeah, but just the fun part, you know, just when your experiment works and you try something new and you're like, oh, this is a cool experiment, I want to do this, or finding out stuff. But I really what I really don't miss is the stuff that your Western doesn't work for weeks and you don't know why, and you get really desperate. So this I don't miss. And what I also don't miss is I always say working by the clock, so that you have to stay 1 more hour, even though it's already 9 o'clock in the evening, but your incubation time is not up yet, so you really have to stay. So that I also don't miss. And yeah, also the working in the evening, so on the weekend for nothing, just for yourself, you know, but no one says, thank you, Andrea, for coming in on Sunday and taking care of your work, of your cells, you know. I mean, yes, now it was my work and it was my papers, but in the end, it could have also been time that I was spending somewhere on the beach, you know. So yeah, but I miss the creativity. I'm more, yes, it's more like you have to do, I mean, I'm in producing the insulin and that's the process we do it. What you can do is optimizing it. So that's a bit of maybe creativity, but that also depends, right? There's also other departments that are the research and development department where you have to do more research, or yeah, it's a bit more restricted, that's true. But you also have like problems every day that you need to solve, like the valve that is broken. So you have kind of other stuff to think about, basically.
Okay, gut, then Valmira.
Hello. Thank you for sharing your experience. It was really nice to hear you. I have 2 questions. One question is, when do you think we should start applying for jobs? Should be last year of PhD, we already should start looking for it, or it's okay like after defense? And the second question is more related to the leaders and bosses in industry. Do they have to go to the mentoring or mentorship special courses or seminars? Is it more required and like checked in industry rather than in academia?
Okay.
Thank you.
So when you apply, I mean, that depends a bit on you, right? If you, for example, after your PhD, you still want to be a postdoc for a while, or if you want to take some time off. So that depends on you when you plan on starting your job. I mean, I guess it will take a few months to get something, because they also take their time, you know, they have the ad out and then they take the applications, then they check it. So it takes, I would say, 3 months at least. So then it depends on you when you want to start. And being a boss in industry, so I don't think they have to go into mentoring. So far, my bosses were all fine, but of course, you also can have bosses that are a bit choleric or something. That depends a bit. But not that I know that they have these mentoring things.
Okay,
but they
I just heard that. Yeah.
They have more bosses on top, right? So there's maybe more control who is promoted to become a boss. Maybe that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there more questions? Feel free to ask anything and everything. You can also type in the chat if you feel shy to show your face. Maybe then I can continue. So since the traineeship is like a finite position, so there's a restricted timeline to the traineeship. Do you already know from the beginning how this will work out? So is there a thing that you know that you will be integrated fully into the company when you're done? Or is it then like, okay, you have these 2 years and then we see what happens? How is the perspective there?
So that's the question I asked in my interview days, and they said, we are hiring 98% of the people. And they always tell you like you will be integrated. In the end, it's actually, for us, it's okay, but the trainee people before us, for them, it was actually really hard to get a position afterwards. That depends on if the company is hiring or if they are reducing the employee numbers a bit. And also depends in which area. If you're in the growth area, then they hire you more probable than if you are in the more declining areas. So I think from us, we are 15, and I think for 3 they are still in the application process, but all of us, we got a position. Some got an unlimited position, some got a limited position. So I wouldn't rely on, yes, you're hired afterwards for sure.
Okay.
They tell you this, but yeah. And for some, like for me, they already they told me that I will be continued afterwards, but only for 2 more years for now. But others, they just got it like, so our trainee ends in April, and one of the girls, she just got a job like 2 weeks ago, but unlimited. So
okay, this is then also, of course, if you don't know like early enough, in her case, I mean, if she would now be finished end of April and then need to look for another job quite suddenly, of course, yeah, this is always a bit tricky. Okay, then we have another question from Eva. What do you consider your greatest achievement during your PhD studies?
I think that I finished the project. I mean, so we were quite, so in Julian König's lab, we were quite a new lab. So we basically were just building it up. And also the project was completely new. So I was really sitting down, looking into the literature, what we could do as a research project, or which ubiquitin ligase to work on. And in the end, we had a publication. And I think Annabelle is still around, so she also had a publication. So I think
Yay. I also finished.
yes. So yeah, that it, you know, that it started and we both finished.
I mean, that's definitely something. Yeah, if you have to start from scratch without really a big lab to fall back on, that's true.
Yeah, thanks.
Nadia has a question. Are they, in this case Zanufi, then hiring people who do not speak German at all? We had, I think, a similar question in the beginning already, but maybe you can just reiterate again.
Yeah, I think Nadia joined a bit later, so depends on the department. Depends on if it's more international. So if you work with people in France and Spain, for example, then you don't need to speak German. If you have the position I have, then I think it's quite good to speak German, because not everyone does speak English. Yeah.
Okay, more questions for Andrea. Maybe it's also interesting for some to know how you would describe your coping mechanisms throughout the PhD, because as you said, there's like very, very stressful periods and less stressful periods. So what did you do to kind of relax a little bit throughout the stressful periods?
So I was playing volleyball with Vivine. Yeah, so I also started playing tennis. So I really, like, I think in the 4th year, I was really trying to do a lot of sports. Then we also met with the friends and had a drink or 2, or went for partying, and also meeting other friends, for example, like going somewhere, you know, get out of this this place basically and see something else. Yeah, sometimes just eating chocolate. And yeah, talking to friends also, you know, to complain about it, or yeah, depends a bit on the situation, and sometimes just get through it.
That's true, yeah. Okay, anyone else? Don't be shy. As you can see, no one will be eaten. There's no such thing as stupid questions.
Yeah, what I can maybe still add, so I was now in this trainee program. In retrospect, I mean, you earn enough money, really. You earn more than in the PhD, and it's really fine. Also more maybe than a postdoc. But then it's a bit like the PhD, you work a lot, and in comparison to the other people who have a normal contract, you earn less. So if you have the chance to just start in the company without the trainee program, that can also be a good choice. You know, if you have a job that you maybe are interested in, that you like, maybe you don't need to do the trainee program. I mean, what is really nice about it is that you have your peers, that you have these courses, that you get to see different departments, but you also get to see other departments or talk to other people if you just have one job. You know, and yeah, so it sometimes feels a bit like a PhD. As I said, you have a lot of responsibility, maybe not for yourself, but for the product. And yeah, you're the one staying late, basically. I mean, the others also stay late, but yeah, you can also just apply for normal jobs, and maybe that's even better sometimes. As I said, because you don't have the guarantee to be hired afterwards again.
Even though the traineeship in this case might be a bit also an advantage, because you get to see different parts of the company. So you get an idea of different parts that might be helpful if you want to apply outside of the company as well.
But for example, I think, I'm not sure, but a former bachelor colleague of mine, I think she's in Marburg. I think it's not GSK, but somewhere. And she also did a traineeship, and there you changed every 2 or 3 months even. So she saw like 10 departments, and I basically just saw 2. Okay. So there's different, or I think Novartis, they have 3 years of trainee program. So it really depends on the company also. Also there is, so we are industrial affairs, so we are in the production, but they also have, I mean, maybe for you as PhD students, it's not so interesting, but they also have finance traineeship. So there's not, there's not this only one, but there's also a lot of different things that you can do.
Yeah, it looks like no one feels like asking more questions. I've had a lot of thank yous already in the chat, so everyone's very happy about your talk, Andrea, and for the honest answers. And yeah, if really no one else wants to ask anything more, then I guess we're done. And then I give back to Eva.
Yeah, it seems we ran out of questions, but there were plenty of them.
A lot of questions. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, it was really nice. So I would like to thank you for your very inspiring and I believe very beneficial lecture for our participants. And I also thank to all participants for their nice questions, actually. And before I say farewell, I recommend you to follow our SATEC website or social media, because we have been already preparing other live after PhD lectures with other speakers, inspiring speakers. So have a nice day and have fun in your jobs and outside your jobs. And hopefully see you soon at our next lectures. Thank you very much.
All.
It was very nice. Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.